Next, we're going to talk about leveraging packages in your workflow, because packages still exist. And packages, I think, actually will continue to be useful to you as long as you use them properly. So I'm suggesting a set of best practices for the use of packages. First, use them temporarily only to write code. Second, and I'm going to list them now, and then I'm going to show you in a use case. Okay. Second, use variables in the packages where they're applicable, rather than just writing the code out by hand. Pick the appropriate variable and stick it in there. Use beginning and ending comments around your package references. This will make it very easy for you to find those packages when you're looking at the CSS file, and it'll make it easy for you to cut and paste those back into your skin or custom CSS. Which brings me to the next point, which is once you've generated that code, cut that generated code from the css.css file and paste it either into custom or skin CSS, and then replace the resultant values with variables again, so that your CSS continues to stay dynamic by using those dynamic variables. So we're going to look at a very specific instance of this now. And we're going to do so, let's see, over in the skin editor, we're going to create a 2-column CSS definition. Okay, so we're going to come over to CSS and go to packages, and we're going to create a columns package, add that package, and then we're just going to call it 2 equal columns. And I'm going to call the reference is going to be just columns 2. And the CSS selector for this is going to be columns 2. Okay, that's the class name that we're going to use for this. And then under our options, we'll use 2 columns. The first column is going to have a selector of half with a column width of 50%. The alignment is going to be left, which means it's going to float to the left. And for padding, we are going to use the x single padding variable. So we're just going to type in $x_padding. No, x single, pardon me. Okay, and then we're doing that on the right. That's the top, the right. The bottom will be no padding, so 0px. And then left padding. Now column 2, I'm not going to write any more code because it's going to be exactly the opposite. I'm just going to give it, I'm just going to make sure that it knows that the second column also has the class of half. But I don't need to fill out the rest of that stuff because it's exactly the same as this. Okay. So I'm going to save this. Then I'm going to come up above layout structure, and I'm going to create a comment, an opening comment. Let's see, 2 columns, 2 equal columns. Okay, and actually, I'm going to paste that again and say end 2 equal columns. This way you can tell absolutely where your code began and ended. And then if we look at our packages, we're looking at columns 2, so we say ampersand columns _2. Now before I get too far, I want you to see what the CSS file looks like. Now this is a tool you're going to have to learn to use, and you can access your CSS file one of a number of ways. In Chrome, you can access your CSS file by coming over to, well, first by right-clicking and saying Inspect Element, and then when you're in that, you go to your Resources tab, open up Frames, scroll down to Style Sheets, and double-click on css.css. That brings up your CSS file. An alternative to that in Firefox is to use Web Developer. And Web Developer is a tool that is an add-on that you install. All right, and so I'm going to go to Web Developer, and I'm going to turn on the Developer toolbar. Oh, pardon me. I'm going to open up the tools, I guess. And then come over here, and now we're looking at the WP content thesis skins classic R CSS.css. You can, well, I guess you can't. You can turn it on and off. That's interesting. Okay, I guess that's what you have to do. You can save it. You can click save and open it up here, or you can actually just scroll through this, right, and find what we're going to look for, which is, actually, you could just Control F in this and look for dot columns 2, right, because that's what we called this thing. But it didn't take us there. So it's a little bit. Oh, no, I guess I haven't saved. Oh, that's right. No, I haven't saved it yet. That's the problem. I haven't saved the file yet. I just want you to see where this is showing up, right? It's going to show up above layout structure, because this is where that style CSS begins. So if we come back over now, I'm sorry, I totally forgot that. I thought it was already there, but it's not there yet. But now I come over and I hit Save CSS. And if I refresh this in Chrome, now I have my 2 equal columns. And you can see the code here, and then end 2 equal columns. This makes it really easy for you to find and copy, right? So we found it and we copied it. And then back to the skin editor. And then I'm going to place this in custom CSS. Because it's my opinion, you shouldn't ever change skin CSS if you're not the developer. And I'm going to come right down here to columns, content, and paste that. So now I've got my 2 equal columns. The other thing I'm going to do is clean the code up here real quickly. Just place my cursor before each line and then hit enter. This way it is readable. Okay, this columns 2.5 is not necessary, so I'm going to delete it. And something special to note about the columns package is that Thesis creates a clear fix for that, but it places the clear fix down at the very bottom. So what you really need to do is go all the way down to the bottom of the file and grab this 2 columns after with the clear fix in it. And do the same thing. Come back over here. This clears the floats, right? So now you've got the code for 2 equal columns as written by Thesis. Now that we've done that, what we want to do is do that search and replace, right? So we're going to control, what was that? It was search and replace is Shift Control R. So we're going to Shift Control R, and note right up here it says replace, and I want to replace, whoops, I want to replace 27px, and hit enter. And now it asks replace it with, and I'm going to say $x_single, and hit enter again. And now every place where it says 27 pixels has been replaced with single, which is the value that was used. Okay. Now if I save my custom CSS and I refresh this view, now I'm back down here to, let's see, where are we? Here's where custom CSS starts, down near the very end of the file. Always starts down near the very end of the file. And here's the CSS we wrote, 2 equal columns, and now it shows up there with the right substitution, right? That stuff was all there. So we can now safely come back over to our skin editor, CSS, and delete it, because we don't need it to generate anymore. And actually I think I'm just going to call this custom reference or package reference. Okay. There we go. Save that. So now I've got a place to always put my code with a comment that I can change. And if I refresh it and first come up here to the top where package reference into package references, you know, now that column 2 thing is not there anymore. And so if we come down here and look at the standard clear fix that Thesis creates, that is also, oh, it is still there though, which is a little odd. Maybe that's going to stay there unless I delete that package. Maybe that's the case. Maybe I have to delete the package in order for that to go away. But in any case, I've got it up here where I want it to. So it doesn't really matter if it's down there unless I want to change this. So, okay, so that is a system of using 2.0 packages in your workflow. Now what we're going to do is take a 5-minute break, and then I'm going to come back and continue the presentation. You know, I'm afraid that this is going to go longer than 2 hours, so if you need to leave before 2 hours and have a question that needs to be answered before that, please post that question here in the question box with a note that you need it answered before 2 hours. Yeah, anyway, do that and I'll try to address it before that 2 hours is up.